Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and before we get started, a quick note that today's episode includes discussion of anorexia, disordered eating, and other sensitive mental and physical health topics. Please take care of yourself while listening, or feel free to skip this week's episode if needed. Today's story, though, starts with Lena being a super active kid and slowly losing her footing with movement as life, injury, and an unhealthy relationship with exercise took over. She opens up about being diagnosed with anorexia, stepping away from running entirely, and the long, often unglamorous process of rebuilding trust with her body through recovery, physical therapy, and learning how to fuel and move in a way that was actually sustainable. This conversation follows Lena as she carefully finds her way back to running, starting with 5Ks that once felt impossibly long, stacking small wins, and eventually deciding to chase something she thought she'd never do, her first marathon. We talk about confidence highs, fatigue lows, training setbacks, and what it meant for her to cross the finish line, not just as a marathoner, but as somebody who reclaimed her body, her strength, and her relationship with movement along the way. Without further ado, let's jump right into the episode. Please welcome Lena. Lena, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you and break down your first marathon. You just ran your first marathon very recently. I love the episodes where it's very much fresh on your mind. So before we get started, thank you for coming on, and I'm excited to break it down.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Amazing. All right, cool. Well, we like to start from the beginning. So where did movement start for you? How did we kind of end up in this world?
Yeah, I was a super active kid. I was one of those kids in elementary school that kind of played every sport for a while. I did tennis, swimming, gymnastics. I did a little bit of track and field as a child. I was like a sprinter back then, though. I don't think you could have paid me to run farther than like the 400 meters.
Sure.
And then I kind of picked a sport. I really stuck with swimming, and I was a competitor swimmer for 7, 8 years. And I did distance swimming, which sometimes I think about now that I'm like, oh, I kind of always liked distance, but maybe I didn't know it. I had loved to swim like the 500 freestyle and the 1,000. And then I got a concussion in high school, and that kind of slowed my movement around, which I was very bummed about. I hated sitting still, but when you get a concussion, you kind of have to let your brain rest. And so when I was starting to get better, I got back into movement, which was really nice. I didn't go back to swimming just because you flip turn when you swim, and that can be pretty disorienting.
Sure.
Yeah, so in high school, I was in the color guard, and I shot archery competitively, and I did go back to track for like 1 season, but man, did I really hate to like run fast.
Yeah.
I didn't mind. I always liked when we'd warm up in track and you could kind of just like do whatever pace you wanted, and I could kind of just zone out. So I only ran track for 1 season, and I was not very good. And then when I got to college, I really was like, okay, there's no like formal sport you're playing anymore, no formal activities. So I was really, really fearful of gaining the freshman 15. And so I decided to become somebody who goes to the gym way too much, in my opinion. And I went to the gym like every day. I was there before class. I never missed a day, and it started to become a bit unhealthy. I got into a very bad habit of overexercising and undereating. And during that time, I had this thought. I was like, I'd really love to become somebody who runs 5Ks. It just seems really cool when people like casually, I'm like, oh, I have a 5K this weekend. And at that time, a 5K seemed so long to me. Like I was like, wow, people must really, really train for 5Ks. Like it takes forever to get there. And so I was like, well, this is probably the healthiest I'll ever be, even though I wasn't being healthy in reality. I was underweight and I was not fueling my body properly. And so I did decide to sign up for a 5K, and I went to college in Florida. So I ran a Disney 5K, which was so fun.
Yeah.
I love it. It was nice because I lived in Florida, so I didn't have to like get a hotel. I could just drive from my college campus. And so I really did enjoy like kind of starting to run for that 5K. I loved running the 5K. Waking up at 2 a.m. to run a Disney race is very difficult. It's so early and I had to like drive 45 minutes to get there and it rained and then I had to like go to class on the way back.
Oh my gosh.
Like in one of my classes and my friend was like, I can't believe you came to class. Didn't you run this morning? And I was like, I cannot miss class. Like I'm up. I was back in time. But I really loved running. And in college, it's Florida, so it's hot. So I mostly ran on an indoor track. But I really enjoyed just like running in circles and listening to my music and stuff like that. And so I did a second 5K. I did another Disney 5K. I did the one in January and then the Princess one in February.
Nice.
And after that was when I kind of started to feel the effects of really not eating enough. And I was diagnosed with anorexia, which was very hard for me to come to terms with. I remember kind of having to stop movement because my body really couldn't do it anymore. And it wasn't because I didn't want to, but it was because I really wasn't eating enough. I was still trying to overexercise. And it got to the point where I would get winded walking to class because I was just so weak. And I could feel myself falling asleep because my body just had no nutrients. And once I got the diagnosis, I saw a nutritionist originally, and we kind of talked about some stuff, but my first nutritionist wasn't that helpful, sadly. But I did start therapy, and therapy was very helpful for me, and that really helped me get into a better mindset. And then I was able to kind of start some movement back. I could walk more, but I didn't really return to running. I had torn cartilage in my hip. So I kind of had to stop a lot of movement and really just focus on getting better. And that was getting better mentally, getting better physically in different ways. And during that time, I had moved out to Colorado. I graduated college and I moved out here with my husband, boyfriend at the time. And I started grad school. So I kind of was like, I'm not really going to try to find a gym. I'm not going to really do this. I'm going to go to physical therapy for my hip. And I started seeing a new nutritionist and a new therapist out here in Colorado. And that's when I really started to make a lot of recovery. I still have the same nutritionist today, which is really amazing that I've been able to see her when I'm having hard times, and then I've been able to go back to her when I'm running the marathon to be like, I want to make sure I'm healthy.
That's so amazing. Yeah.
Yes, she really made such a big impact on my life. I don't think I could ever thank her enough. So during grad school, I really just started to walk a lot with my dogs. At the time, I only had one dog. She's a husky. And so I just kind of take her on walks because I wanted to be active again, and maybe doing something a little bit with cardio, but not quite cardio, because I loved cardio when I used to go back to the gym in college. People would always make comments and see me in the gym. They'd be like, you're on the elliptical when I get there and you're on the elliptical when I leave. Because I like that. I like having my heart rate high. I like the continuous movement. I've never been super great about doing strength. And that is probably another reason that my body was kind of breaking down, was because I wasn't building any muscle. So when I got into a healthier place after I put in a year of work, I was like, okay, I feel confident enough and like ready enough to go back to a gym setting. And so I decided I wanted to do something fun. So I started rock climbing again, more with my husband, because that was how we originally met. And I love that rock climbing is physical, but you have like this puzzle aspect to it. And so we were doing a lot more of that. And then I decided to join a boxing gym that was like HIIT boxing, because they had a big emphasis on getting stronger. And that was really what I needed to do. Was I couldn't just go back into this like full cardio mode. I needed to strengthen my body, truly.
Sure.
So I did that boxing gym for about 6 months, and then they closed down, and that's when I felt like I would really like to run again. And I wasn't really sure how to go about it, because I just like originally when I kind of started running in college, I had a good cardio because I did the elliptical a lot. So I kind of had like good cardiovascular, I guess.
Sure.
And when I was looking around for new gyms, I was like, oh, I'd like to find one where I guess you can like run during it. And I found Orange Theory. I really liked Orange Theory at the time because they really kind of taught you pacing. And that wasn't something I really understood because all the running I had done beforehand was sprinting. Like when you run a gym class, when you run track and field, you are really just like going for as fast as you can. And so it's kind of nice that they had what they call you have a base pace, you have a push, and you have an all out. And that was really helpful because I didn't really know what kind of pace I was comfortable running at for a long period of time. And so I started that. I would go like 2-3 times a week. I was starting to like it a lot. And then I signed up for like a 5K and I didn't end up doing it because I think I had to work on a Saturday, but I was really bummed. But so I kept kind of going with Orange Theory and I got just like a better base, and they kind of do these milestones every once in a while where it's like, okay, you're going to run for 12 minutes and see how far you can get. And it's so funny because the first time I did it, I was like, I haven't ran for like 12 minutes straight in a really long time because it's a lot of interval work that you do at Orange Theory where you sprint and then you walk and then you maybe base pace and then you walk. So I was kind of nervous, but I was like, okay, 12 minutes, I can do like a mile. That's 5 miles. It's on a treadmill. So I was like, that's 5 miles per hour. I can do that kind of thing. And it's also very fun because like everybody's doing it at the same time. You're in a class setting. So the instructor's playing really fun music and they're encouraging you and everybody's like encouraging you. That it was really nice. Once I did that and I ran like the 1 mile, like the whole time, I was like, okay, for the next year, because that was in September, that was in like August, I would say. And I was like, come the new year, once I can run a 5K and I feel like confident and I'm not like dying, I want to run a race once a month in 2024. I had a friend also moving here in 2024 that also liked to run. So I think I was doing Orange Theory and Pilates at the time because Orange Theory does have a strength component, but I did want to make sure if I was going to get back into running that I really was strengthening my hip, and Pilates was a great way for me to do that.
I've heard really awesome things about Pilates. Yeah.
It's really great and I loved it. I don't do it anymore just because Pilates classes are very small. They're like 12 people. So it can sometimes like get into a class, but it was really amazing for like strengthening my core and strengthening my hips. And I still do a lot of what I've learned in Pilates today. I just do it at home.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so I was really getting back into movement, and the most important thing was I was getting back into movement in a really healthy way. And I'm still very proud of myself because that was something back when I was in the height of my anorexia diagnosis that I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to do again. Getting winded on the way to class. And one thing with anorexia is your body can get really cold and you can't get warm. And it's crazy to get cold in Florida.
Yeah.
Like, we were walking to class and it's 75 and sunny and you feel cold in your bones. It's like a very difficult thing. And so I was so proud of myself for getting back into movement in a healthy way and being able to like feel strong, like do push-ups and being able to run the mile were like these big milestones that I don't know if I realized at the time, but for now, like having come so far, I feel very grateful. And when my friend moved here, I was like, let's sign up for this St. Patrick's Day 5K. Because there's not a ton of races in Colorado in January and February. And I feel like I needed kind of somebody there with me to keep me accountable. She ran it. My other friend who moved here also ran it. And I had another friend who was getting into run it and he ran it. So the 4 of us ran it together. And it was really nice. It kind of like eased the nerves. It was just a local 5K, but it really felt like a big deal for me. This was going to be the first race, big like movement event, first race I will do since tearing the cartilage in my hip and since being in recovery for anorexia. So I felt nervous. I live in a hilly area, so I was kind of worried about the hills. And my goal wasn't really even to just like run it all, but it was just to kind of like do it.
Yeah.
And I will say I didn't want to walk a lot of it. I was like, okay, if I have to walk to like go up a hill, that's okay. I don't really run a ton of hills. At that point, I wasn't running outside a ton. I was mostly doing Orange Theory, and I was just
Hmm.
kind of starting to get into like a weekend long run, which at the time was like 2 miles, because at
Yeah.
Orange Theory, I'd really only hit like a mile to a mile and a half. And I was running this 5K, and it's March, so it's kind of chilly. It's a very fun 5K, very local, and I'm running it with my friends. My one friend decides she wants to PR. She goes ahead, and I'm like, yes, go PR. My one friend's deciding to walk more, so it's just my one friend and I, and we're kind of both just in silence, and we're just like running.
Just
And
locked in.
yeah, I was just like locked in. I had like no thoughts, which I feel like usually during races I do think about things, but I was like so locked in, focused on my playlist. And I'm running it, and it's nice. It's running through the town that I live in, so it's kind of cool. We're running on like these paved trails. I'm enjoying it. It's not too hot. And I get to this part, we almost are at 3 miles, and we have to go up this hill. And I said to my friend, I was like, are you okay if I just like go ahead? Because I feel like I had a lot of energy. And so I go up this hill, and we have to turn down a hill, run up another hill to the finish line. I'm like running down this hill, and I started to get so just like overcome with emotions, because I didn't, at that point, I had run the whole thing, and I just felt like so unbelievably proud of myself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I like kind of start to cry, and then I turn and I have to run up this small hill to like the finish line. I am a bit of a slower runner. I run anywhere between like a 10 to a 13, really depending on the distance. So there's tons of people at the finish line. You know, like people are cheering, they are doing announcers, which I always think is really fun at a race.
Yeah.
To like just like walk, like finish, walk through, like, well, run through and then like start to walk. I'm just like tearing up, because I just like truly didn't know I was gonna get to be back to a place where I got like the privilege to be tired from
Yeah.
an activity I love. And I think that was something I kind of forgot sometimes in marathon training, was like it's a big privilege to be able to run this distance and to
Totally.
be able to be tired and be tired in a healthy way.
Totally.
And so after that, I did a bunch of 5Ks. I loved a 5K. Currently, not fans of 5Ks. Too short. That's a
That
stretch.
shifted. Yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, that was kind of when I started to run on Sunday mornings, or like anytime during Sunday. And I would just do a 5K. And so I think March, April, May, June, and July, I all did like a 5K race. When my friend had moved here, she wanted to get into trail running. I had never trail run, but Colorado was a great place to do it. And so we were
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
what if we do a trail 10K? And I, at that point, had not run a 10K. So I was like, yeah, sure, that's like a great motivator. I did think it would be cool to be able to run more, but I wasn't like, I want to run all the miles all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like, if it happens, it happens, but
I was
wasn't
like,
necessarily
cool.
a goal.
I would say like the hardest jump distance wise for me was from a 5K to a 10K.
Interesting. Yeah.
My kind of plan was to go up 1 mile a month, which it's crazy because in marathon training, you go up like 2 miles a week.
Yeah. It is crazy
And
when you look back and you're like,
long
oh,
run,
wow.
whoa. But I think it was like my May race, I technically did the Colfax Marathon Relay. So I ran like 4 miles. So as a May, I was like, okay, 4 miles. Cool, I can do that. In June, I just stayed because I got married that month. So I had a very busy month.
Yeah.
And then when July rolled around, I said to my friend, I was like, okay, we have to go run 5 miles. And I had no idea if I could actually run 5 miles. But I was like, if I run with my friend, it's going to help. She was a much better runner than me. She still is much faster than me when we go on runs together. And we went to this canyon that I ran in. I run in all the time. It's nice because it's pretty flat and it's like a dirt road. So it's not as hard as running on a
Like
regular road.
asphalt, pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta save those knees. And so
Yeah.
it was nice. We like run this 5 miles. It goes really good. This canyon is really beautiful. And the canyon is like 12.6 miles. It's
Mm.
6.2 out, 6.2 back. And my goal kind of became, I was like, it would be really cool to run this whole canyon. And I was like, and then if I can run 12.6, I could do a half.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that would be pretty cool. And then I wasn't like completely sold. And then I also live by this lake. I live by a state park. And around the lake is like 11.4 or something. And I was like, oh, it would be really cool to run the whole way around the lake too.
Yeah.
I've biked it before. So then I kind of transitioned into this. I would like to run a half marathon because I wanted to run this whole canyon. If I can run the whole canyon, I can run a half. And
Totally.
so
Yeah.
the friend that I ran with, I was like, listen, I think we should do this. I think it'd be really cool to kind of do together. Because a lot of the sports I did growing up, you don't really do solo. Like when you competitively swim, sure, you race solo, but like you practice with a team.
Sure,
And
sure.
so same thing, I shot archery for years competitively. You shoot like alone, you compete against yourself, but again, you practice with a team. So it was very kind of different to go out and like do these things solo. And so my friend, luckily, she was like, yeah, that would be really cool. And so we started to kind of work up the mileage, and I kept up with my race goal. I did the trail 10K, which I totally bit it running down the hill.
Oh
Watch out.
no,
Watch
trail
out.
races are something else. Yeah.
It was so funny. I went into this, we had another friend run it with us, and I was like, my goal is to come in. I've never been big on time goals, but I
Mhm.
was like, my goal is to come in under like an hour and a half because it was pretty uphill and not to fall.
Yeah.
I met one of those goals. I came in at like an hour and 20 minutes because I fell with 2 miles left. And I
No.
ended up spraining my foot.
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah, trail
Yeah.
races, they can be tricky for sure.
So watch out for loose dirt.
Yeah.
I came around the bend and I hit loose dirt and I just went down.
Oh
Um,
man.
but luckily I didn't sprain my foot too bad. I just had to take off like a week and a half and I really stayed off of it because I also was kind of training for my first sprint triathlon at the time
Oh, cool, cool.
because I grew up competitively swimming and one of my coworkers at work made a comment. They were like, I bet you could do a triathlon. And so I kind of like was training for that while I was training for my trail 10K because I love to swim and it's my favorite cross training activity. Turns out I hate to bike.
Yeah.
Found
Oh
that
yeah, you got two of the three.
yeah, I was like, wow, this is so boring.
Yeah.
So after that trail 10K, I like had to take a week off, but I did my sprint triathlon. And again, I got like emotional because I was like, not really something I ever thought I could do.
Yeah.
Um, and it was really cool. And I had friends come out for the sprint triathlon. They made signs. It was
Cute.
really, really cool. It was an all women's triathlon. So it was such a supportive environment. After that, I was kind of like, okay, I want to like bump up my distance, especially if I'm going to work to getting to a half and running the whole canyon. And I found like a random 15K race. So I was like, okay, at that point, I kind of needed like a race to motivate me because I
Mhm.
know I would never go unprepared to a race. That's just
Mhm.
not my like personality. I'm a very like prepared person. So I was like working towards training for that and it went great. It was a very boring race. We just ran in laps around a park. But it went good. It was like fun. At that point we had gotten to 9 miles and my friend and we like had gone out again the following weekend to run 8 miles. That's kind of where we were in our like progression.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I was feeling so good. I was like, would it be crazy if we just like bumped up and we did 9? And I was like, but then we really only have like a half mile to do 10 if you think about it,
Right. Right.
because it was an out and back.
Right.
And it felt so cool to run 10 miles for the first time. And I had this thought, and I was like, I felt like I could keep running. I can't go any faster, but I could keep going at the same pace.
Right. Right.
And we had this very loose goal to do what we called the whole canyon run in December. And at that time, it was October. And I was like, I think we could do the whole canyon in November. I was like, I feel pretty strong. I was feeling like very on top of the world. And at this point, I was running, I was talking about running more as runners do. And
Yeah.
I was getting a lot of people at work or friends being like, do you think you're going to run a marathon? And I was just like, no, that
It
sounds
couldn't be me.
so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Can't catch me doing that. I always had heard like marathon training kind of overtakes your life for a period of time. And so I was just like, no, never. I was like, I think a half would be really cool. I can be one of those people that run halves. You know, my parents can be like, my daughter runs half marathons. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I,
Yeah.
at that time, didn't really know anybody who ran or had run half marathons or marathons. I have one friend who ran a marathon when he was like 16, which is pretty cool. But other than that, I didn't really know a lot of runners. So I just had kind of heard like the bad, I think, sometimes you hear about marathon training. So I was like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. And I was so excited to do this whole canyon run. And I was like, it's 12.6 miles total if you go to the dam in the back, because there's this really cool dam at the end of this canyon. But I was like, if you can technically go a little bit farther until the Colorado Trail before it really gets like very trail terrain. I was like, it'd be kind of cool to do that because maybe we'd hit the half marathon. My friend and I stood up on a Sunday morning where it had just snowed in Colorado, and I was so determined to do it that I was like, I'm going to do it in the snow. Because sometimes I get this now or never mentality where I was like, okay, well, I'm gone the next weekend and then it's Thanksgiving and then it's Christmas.
Yeah. Like, yeah, we got to do it now.
To do it now. So we did it at like 10 a.m. And I was very in the mindset that like, I'm going to run this. I don't care if I have to run a 14-minute mile. I'm going to run this. At that point, I was kind of running very consistently from like a 12 and a half to a 13. And I was really enjoying that pace. I liked it. I packed us up all of our gels because at that time we were transitioning into gels. We were really heavily relying on applesauce packets.
Which are also great. Yeah.
Also great and a very good way to get into gels.
Yes.
Because when I was starting to get into running, I kind of read about like fueling and how fueling can be very different for women and how women may have a smaller like fuel time, like 30 minutes instead of 45 minutes. So we were doing this very funny like series where we were just trying very random fuel on our like 4-mile runs because it's kind of nice to like try it on a run you don't necessarily need it on in case it goes bad.
Totally.
And so at that point, we had kind of just discovered the Humagels and applesauce packets. So we were rotating. So we had our running vests on and we were like packed up and there was snow on the ground, but it was warm. So we were in like shorts, but the long sleeve shirts with gloves. And we like set out to run this. And it was great. I had so much fun with my friend. We had another friend who came along. It was so cool to like discover more and more of the canyon and to see like the last 2.5, 3 miles of it because we hadn't seen it before and it was pretty empty because it just snowed. So I felt like we had the whole canyon to ourselves the majority of the run. And it was really cool. And at the end, we had our one friend take a video of us like holding hands and running and finishing it. And I remember feeling really emotional because, again, it was something I didn't think I was ever going to get to do.
Yeah.
And we get in our cars, we go our separate ways, and I call my husband at the time to like tell him I just ran my first half marathon, and called my dad. I tell him the same thing. And it's funny because my dad was like, how long did it take you? And I was like, oh, I think it took me like 3 hours and 1 minute or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, wow, I could like never run for that long. And it kind of hits me that like I did run for that long. Like that's pretty cool. Because sometimes you just don't realize it in the moment.
No,
And
it's such a gradual build that, it's not like you ran, a mile and then jumped to 13. It's like, it's so gradual that you prove it to yourself along the way. Totally.
You really do. And so I had gone from like running 6 miles for the first time in August to running 13.1 in November. So I did kind of increase pretty good. And it didn't really like hit me. And then I get home, I'm showering, I'm like forcing myself to eat some cereal. My dog's trying to steal the cereal from me. I'm like, girl, you can run 13.1 miles.
Yeah, this is for you.
Let me eat my Fruit Loops. And I then am driving to the grocery store and I just go, I'm going to run a marathon.
Quick break from today's episode to share that the My First Marathon merch is officially live. Whether you're headed out for a cold run or just living in comfy clothes between workouts, shop the MFM hoodie and beanie to add a few new comfy pieces to your closet. You can shop everything at myfirstmarathon.co, click on shop, and use code MFM10 for 10% off your first order as a special thanks to all of our listeners. That's myfirstmarathon.co, click on shop, and use code MFM10 for 10% off your first order. All right, let's jump back to the episode.
And that was like the first time I ever had the thought. Because before that, I was like so against it. And my friend who I ran with, I was like, so and so asked me if I was going to run a marathon. And I said no. And she goes, I'm pretty sure you're going to run one. And she had said that to me like a month before we did.
That's a good friend.
The whole canyon run. She's a great friend. She plays a really big part in my marathon journey. Her name's Becky. She's great. The Chicago Marathon had just happened. So I applied for the lottery. Didn't get in. And part of me was like, okay, I don't have to do it. Like, I have an out. But I just started to like strongly feel that I could do it. And it was something that I wanted to do. And that's when I started to like shop around for marathons. I didn't realize how many marathons there are out there.
Yeah, there's a lot. You can go local, you could go kind of in the middle, you go big city, go world major. Yeah, there's so many.
There's so many. And so my friend and I had decided we were going to race a half marathon in March. And so I was like, okay, I think I'd want to do like another half or two more before I run the marathon. So I was like, okay, I think like a year from now. So I was like a fall 2025 marathon, because that's when Chicago would have been as well. And that was kind of what I was thinking. Curse the Chicago lottery. Get in again this year.
It's gotten us all. It's gotten me 3 times. I feel you.
So I was like looking for a marathon, and as I was kind of looking for a marathon, I started to like get a trickle of doubt. I had called my friend who ran a marathon when he was 16. He ran Chicago. He's from Chicago. And I said, I don't even know if I said hello. I was just like, do you think I could run a marathon? And he was like, yes. And I was just like, cool. And then I was
thanks. Bye. Like, hang up.
I was like, I don't know what marathon to run. I kind of looked into it some. And I was going back and forth between Cottonwood Mountain Marathon and Salt Lake City, which is the marathon I did choose. There's a marathon out in Big Bear in California. And then I was maybe toying the idea of doing like the Indy Monument Marathon. I wanted something that was really pretty. I was used to running in nature, so I kind of took Indy out of the running because I didn't really want to run around a city. Also, Indy has gotten pretty big over the years. And I was worried I would just get very overwhelmed and overstimulated. So I was kind of looking at between the one in Salt Lake, Big Cottonwood Mountain, and Big Bear. And then I was like, I'd really love for my parents to come, because part of the journey of me running a marathon in every month, I was going to visit my parents in South Carolina, where they now live. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll run like a fun Christmas race or something. And so I booked it. And when I was telling my dad about it, my dad texted me, he goes, I'm so excited to see you run. And I was just like,
that's sweet.
And my dad and I are very close. And I was like, very excited. And my mom was like so excited for me when I've done my triathlons. And she always texts me after my races. So I was like, okay, I'd really like for my parents to be able to come if they want to come. So I was like, Salt Lake City airport. Whereas like Big Bear, you kind of have to like drive from an airport and stuff. And then my in-laws have been super supportive, and they always ask me about training for the half and how's running going. So I was like, maybe they'd want to come too. So I ended up picking Cottonwood Mountain, which is a Revel race series. So it is very downhill, which I did not know at the time that I signed up. So that was fun.
I guess better than accidentally an uphill marathon. That's better than two.
I had to run up that mountain.
Right.
But so I like signed up for them when I was basically at the airport on my way to visit my parents and run that Christmas 10K. Because I was like, if I don't sign up, I'm not going to sign up.
Sure, yeah.
I had signed up at that point. I had signed up for my first half marathon race and my first marathon. And I was super excited about it because at that point I had really loved the long run.
Yeah.
At that point, I had just started a training program for my half, and I was using Runna, there has been some good things and bad things about Runna. I
Yeah.
did very much enjoy it for my half marathon program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was running 3 days a week. It was cool. I was doing it all on my own. I had stopped going to Orange Theory at this point because I wasn't getting enough miles in.
Yeah.
I trained with my friend every Sunday. We were out there together. We
Yeah.
basically trained either at this one canyon or at this state park because the state park had some hills. And there was going to be some hills in our race, which we raced in March out at Canyon Woods National Park, which is very beautiful if you're in Utah. And so we were like, okay, we got to get some hills in, but training was going so well for me. I felt like I was crushing all my paces. It was interesting, but I didn't know this, but it seems like for a lot of half marathon training programs, you maybe stop at 10 miles for your longest run, but I went all the way up to 15.
Okay, so you passed it. Yeah. I guess makes sense because you were also marathon training at the same time, right? Like kind of doing.
At that point, I was just doing a half marathon.
Okay.
program.
Okay.
Really was like, I don't need to do that. But on Runna, you enter like your longest run. And so my longest run was 12 miles. So maybe it was like, she's very tall, she can run more.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was cool because everything was going really well. And then this 15-mile comes up and I was so nervous. And at that point, I had worked with people who at my job who had ran some marathons. So I would always like ask some questions and stuff. But I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to like hit these paces. Because sometimes the Runna paces can be a little bit fast, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I really wasn't sure. I also had maxed out the places I run because it was like 12 and 11. So then I was like, now I have to figure out a new place to run. But then I figured out I could I could like multi-league connect trails to do things.
Just connect a couple. Yeah.
You know, me on like the Strava heat map, I'm like,
doing mad scientist, like, if I move this, if I do this, yeah.
Like, is this a trail or is this just like a road?
Right.
And so we figure out how we're gonna run. And that day I like get up and I'm like, I'm gonna eat an extra egg waffle. I'm gonna have like more strength. And I'm really excited, but I'm also super nervous. And this 15-miler went great. It was like one of the best runs. I felt amazing. The sun came out. It was kind of warm, so I ended up in a t-shirt for like the last 5 miles, but it was the first time I ever really like ran faster than I was supposed to.
Sure.
I ran like my last 2 miles at like a sub 10, which for me is very fast. I felt like on top of the world. And then like I went into taper and I had a little bit of taper sickness. And that was the first time I ever missed like a run because I just at that point, I was very fortunate enough like not to really have any sort of injuries. I was dealing with some like hamstring tightness.
Yeah.
Mostly because it was cold. I was not good at stretching afterwards. Still working on that. I've gotten really good at like warming up for runs, but I'm very bad at cooling down for runs.
Sure.
And so I did my first half marathon race and it went really great. It was awesome.
Amazing.
I got with my friend, my husband came, my other friend came, and we all went out to Utah. So it was really fun, very beautiful race. And I had a very loose time goal. At that point in training, I had like PR'd a couple times. So I think my like PR that time was like 2 hours and 31 minutes, down from the first time I ran it at 3 hours. So I was like, I would love to get sub 2:30. And I ended up running like a 2:14, which I really think was going to happen.
Yeah, that's huge.
Like, it's not very often you PR by that much. And coming from like competitively swimming, I knew like you don't tend to really get a ton of big PRs.
Yeah. Like when you're in the beginning of your marathon journey, your running journey, like I feel like those big milestones are towards the front end of your journey where you're like, oh my gosh, like running is one of those things where if you just keep consistency with it and stick with it for a period of time. And like you said, set maybe a time goal for yourself at some point. Like, you can really surprise yourself towards the beginning of your running journey for sure.
And it was crazy. I was like, wow. I was really coming off like this amazing training block, these really cool PRs. And I was like, I run like over a half marathon every weekend. There's no reason I can't another half marathon in April. And so I picked one that's more local. It was in Fort Collins, which is about an hour and a half north of Denver. And I really didn't take any time off. And this was not good for my body because I raced really hard. It was a net downhill race, so it can be very hard on your quads and your legs. And like that next weekend, I get back into running and I go like 12 miles and I just go casually and I had a great run. I was living it up. It was like one of the first warm days in Colorado. So it was very nice. The canyon had a bunch of people in it. But then I just start to feel really tight behind my knees. And I was just like, that's running for you. Whatever.
Yeah. Must be normal. Yeah. You don't know about anything different when you're newer. Yeah.
Especially when you're using like an online training program and you can't
Sure.
really like talk to anybody about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm just like, whatever, I'm just going to like keep continuing. And it kind of just starts to like get worse. It's not painful, but it's just uncomfortable. It's very discomforting. Yeah. I ended up going down like a day of running in the week because I just felt like my body wasn't recovering and I was getting tired. This race rolls around. And originally I was like, I'm going to PR again kind of thing. I like totally changed that. And I was like, I just want to run a 220, a 225 because this race was going to be a lot hillier. And the first part of the race is actually called like Monster Mountain because you go.
Sounds fun.
You go straight up.
Oh, it sounds terrible.
Forget how much you gain, but you gain like 1,000 feet in like a mile.
Yeah.
So you just go straight up, and I am just like, I run uphill. Like I know how to run uphill, but like going straight up was so difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I feel like I ran out of steam so fast. And I wanted to run with a pace group, but I lost the pace group so fast because this was the first time I was really running alone. First time I was racing by myself. And so I was very nervous for that too, because I didn't really have anybody there to like push me or just like look over and be like, how are you doing? Kind of thing. Take your mind off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that point I had trained with a friend the whole time, but she wanted to kind of like take a break from running. And so this race was just so hard. My body was hurting. I mentally like got down on myself so bad. And I ended up like texting my dad. I was like, this race is so hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like running it. I'm trying to like enjoy the beauty of Fort Collins, Colorado. And I'm just not. I'm like having a bad time.
Yeah.
And I was going to get to see my husband and my really good friend at mile 8. So I was like, I just have to get to mile 8. After mile 8 is just 5 miles. I can run 5 miles in my sleep kind of thing. And this is the point where I just like have to start to walk because I am just like so not enjoying it.
Yeah.
I finally get on like flat land and I was like walk running. And I remember finishing this race and I was so disappointed in myself. It was the first time I was ever really disappointed in a run. After that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go see a PT and make sure nothing's like wrong with why I'm feeling this discomfort in my legs. And I ended up having like a Baker's cyst, which is just kind of fluid buildup from overuse. So, and I was planning to go straight into marathon training after that race. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take like a week off, a true week off. I'm going to kind of work back into it, see this PT, make sure I'm properly strength training because I was doing it on my own. So I didn't really know if I had proper form and kind of learn like the best exercises for running because at that point I was just using the internet.
Yeah.
And while the internet's great, there's a lot of different opinions out there.
Yes. It's very hard to know what's like influencer strength training and what is like actually backed by research. Yeah, I totally feel you.
So I started going to a physical therapist. And he was really great. I still see him today.
Nice.
Because it's really nice to like be like, hey, sometimes I have this weird feeling. What do you think that is?
Yeah, it is nice to have that person that you can be like, come on, like walk me off the ledge here. I think I'm overreacting, or tell me if I'm overreacting. Yeah, it's good to have that person for sure.
Yeah, so it was nice that he gave me some like more exercises to kind of strengthen my hamstrings, strengthen my hips, especially going into marathon training. I knew it was going to be a lot. After seeing him, I felt very confident going into marathon training again. I was like, okay, I know how to strength train now. I know that I probably need to stretch more all the time because my hamstrings were so tight. And I had decided on like a 19-week training block, which I see now was a bit too long. But I had an amazing first half of this training block. Felt really great. I was hitting all my paces. It was getting hotter in Colorado, but I was doing well in the heat. And so for the first 9 weeks, it was amazing. I loved every second of it. And I got to my B race, my like halfway through race that I wanted to do just to kind of practice marathon training. And it went great. I ran faster than I was supposed to by accident because I also wanted to not look at my watch every like 2 minutes. I ran locally in Colorado. You ran from a ski resort to downtown, so it was like one way, very pretty. I had a great time. I ran like my second fastest half marathon, which I didn't mean to do, but it was very cool.
Yeah.
And it was nice to kind of run that one again solo, but like be a bit more successful.
Yeah.
But during marathon training, having dealt with a half marathon that I was very disappointed in myself, I kind of let go of a time goal because I didn't want to be disappointed in running a marathon.
Yeah.
Because running a marathon is so amazing. And everybody who does one, no matter what time you run it, in my opinion, you are amazing. You're a marathoner. It's very hard. And so I just kind of dropped all time goals. I was like, I'm just going to run because I love to run. So after I run this half, this is when I felt like I was so on top of the world. And then I felt like I just plummeted, which was really difficult. Because after this half I was running, in the run a training plan, I really didn't have any recovery. And because I kind of ran it faster than I expected, I probably needed to take recovery, but I did not learn my lesson about rest and just went into continuing on the training plan. And so from there, I just ran 13. I was supposed to run for long runs 16, 18, 21. So that's basically racing and then just going really up in distance.
No deload, just a build.
There's no deload in between all of that. And I was just kind of like, that's how it is. That's how you marathon train. Because I didn't really know any better. And at that point, I read some running books, but none of them, a lot of it's like the mental aspect. Not really like, this is a training plan. And I didn't really look up other training plans because, again, there's so much out there on the internet. I wasn't really sure what is the best thing. And so I go and I run the 16 miles and I run it a bit slower, but I had a good time. It was nice. I, for once, ran a new route and I enjoyed it. And I had met some people on that run that were ultra runners that I stopped and talked to, very cool guys. And I was feeling pretty good, but I was starting to feel very tired. And this next weekend, I had to run 18 miles. And this was definitely like the lowest point for me. I had moved it up to a Friday instead of a Sunday because we were going camping. And I was like, yeah, I ran 16, I ran 18, no problem, kind of. But that whole week leading up to 18 miles, I was so tired. And it was like a tiredness I had never really experienced. I'm like, okay, I need to strength train better. I need to eat more. But like the fueling you need to run a marathon, in my opinion, is very different from the fueling you need to run a half.
Yeah.
And that wasn't something I really realized. And so I remember waking up for this 18-mile run, and I was running at my usual time for a long run, which was starting pretty early because it was July in Colorado. It's hot out. And I was like, okay, if I start running at like 6 a.m., I should be done, before 11 kind of thing. I am like running and I always try to give it like 2.5 miles because the first 2.5 miles suck of any run.
I agree. Opinion. Totally. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it the 2.5. I'll be fine. And so I give it the 2.5 and I'm just like, I'm so tired. I have no idea what pace I'm running. And I start to I'm like, okay, maybe I just take a little bit more walk breaks because I am running a day earlier for my long run. So maybe that's why.
Sure.
And so I start to take some more walk breaks and then I'm just getting so tired. And so I'm like, okay, run, walk. Definitely more like running than walking. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna like take a good walk break and drink some water. Maybe I'm dehydrated. Maybe I didn't drink enough electrolytes. Maybe I didn't eat a good enough breakfast. Because at this point, I was also really starting to get sick of all the food I was eating before a run.
Sure. You do get to that point for sure.
Like, I'm like kind of like trying all these things because I don't want to like really admit it's like my body.
Yeah.
And so I get to like the turnaround point. Like I was doing 18, so I was doing 9 out, 9 back. And I'm like kind of running again. And then I just like, I couldn't run. And it was the weirdest thing. But I felt like I had this big mind body disconnect. And like my body wasn't listening to my mind. Because like mentally I'm wanted to run. I really enjoy my long runs.
Yeah.
And I just like couldn't. And I had at that point never like DNF'd a long run. There have
Yeah.
been like weekday runs. I'd be like, okay, I'm kind of out of time. I have to go to work. So
Yeah.
but at that point, I had never DNF'd a long run, and I was so defeated because I wanted to run so bad. I ended up, it's very early. I didn't know anybody who was up in Colorado, and my mom was on the East Coast, so I like called my mom and I like talked to her for a little bit because I was like, maybe I just need to like take some calming breaths. And like for a second,
yeah.
sat on a bench, called my mom, and I was like, I'm just having a tough time. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this run. Call one of my really good college friends who's also on the East Coast, because I was like, I just don't know. Like, I'm really just like searching for something, and I'm never somebody who like wants to be like, I'm gonna stop this run. I'm gonna DNF.
Yeah.
I almost kind of wanted someone to be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna finish this run.
Right.
And I am like trying to run, but I'm kind of like crying because I'm just so fatigued, and I had never experienced that. And I since have not experienced that, even post marathon. And ended up calling my husband and asking him to come pick me up. I am like crying because I'm like, if I can't run 18, I can't run 26. And I kind of get in this like downward spiral. And I ended up going to physical therapy that day because I had an appointment to get like stretched out and stuff. And I was like talking to my physical therapist about it, and he was like, your muscles are really fatigued.
Yeah.
He was like, you're training so hard. You've also been pretty tight the last couple of weeks after that race in the 16 miles and doing speed work and everything in between those. And he was great because he also physical therapist, but he also was giving me just some really good advice for like mentally and like calming down and stuff. And he was like, I think you should like take a couple days off. And I was like, I can't. I'm my 21 next week. And then I was doing my 21 miler, and then I was leaving for a vacation. So I was like, what am I going to get to do it again? Kind of thing. And I ended up listening to him, which was good. And I also feel like I was like, this man has like, he has a doctorate in physical therapy. He knows what he's talking about.
Be right. Yeah.
It was like kind of hard. And I remember like that whole day being like, don't let this run bring you down. It's just one bad run. And I listened to your podcast a lot. And so I know people have had bad runs, and then they go on to run successful marathons.
Yes.
So I was like, one bad run does not equal like not being able to finish, not being able to run.
Yes.
And I was like, I also think I kind of need to lower my expectations a little bit about what marathon training is going to look like.
Yeah.
And I also booked an appointment with my nutritionist to be like, I'm sick of every single food I've ever eaten.
Yeah, help me.
You got any thoughts on that? Yeah. So I ended up taking like that Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday off from running. I did a little run Friday, and then for Sunday, I was like, okay, I'm going to like rest Saturday. I'm going to eat. And I was like, I don't really even care what I eat. I just got to eat. And so I was like, what's a food I really like? And I really like smiley fries. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to eat like smiley fries. I'm going to eat cereal because I love cereal, and there's 1,000 varieties of cereal. I was like, okay, I'm going to eat buttered noodles because I know I can slam a bowl of buttered noodles. It might not be the most nutritious thing out there to somebody,
but it's carbs.
Like, this is going to fuel me.
Yeah.
This is going to fuel my run. I don't have to eat a vegetable. It's okay. Yeah. I had trouble letting that go because I was always a big vegetable fruit person, and I still eat a ton of fruit, but I was like, it's okay that maybe I need to eat a little bit more carbs than I do vegetables tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for this 21 miler, I wake up and I'm feeling pretty good. And my friend who had trained with me for the half was like, I will meet you halfway and I'll ride my bike with you. Because at that point, I also was like, I'm going to need more water. I think I met her she met me at mile 14. And I was feeling good. And it was nice because she brought water, Gatorade, and she brought my running belt. So I changed out of my vest. Because it was so hot in Colorado that like the vest, while amazing for holding everything, was just adding extra like heat and trapping heat in my body. So it was really nice. And it was kind of nice because we could chat. So I kind of like take my mind off of it. And at that point, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to run 21 because I just had this super unsuccessful run. But my goal was to just do like the next longest run.
Yeah.
So I was like, even if it ends up being 18, cool. It ended up going really well. It was nice because I feel like it restored my faith, but I was still like, okay, but you couldn't run 18.
Yeah.
And I think I was having a bit of what I call distance dysmorphia.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
Where you kind of forget how amazing it is to run long miles at all.
Right.
Like,
Right.
there was a point I couldn't run 12, and
Right.
I did run 12 that day. Like, I need to remember that I did come from not being a runner, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always think back to the story where somebody at work was like, "Oh, how far did you run this morning?" And I was like, "Oh, I ran 6." And this other guy goes, "You ran 6 miles? That's amazing." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Wait till you hear what I run this weekend," kind of thing.
Yeah,
But being,
right.
it's amazing to run miles. It's okay I couldn't run 18 miles that one day. I know I can run this marathon in my heart.
Totally.
I know that I have time to, build up more. I have time to get better at eating. I have time to figure out my carbs. I still have time. My marathon wasn't for another month and a half. And dealing with that really extreme fatigue made me really just take a look at what I was doing, and knowing that I also needed to rest some in this marathon block. And
Totally.
I kind of dropped some of my cross training activities. I was still swimming at that point. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take out swimming because I would like swim and strength train. And I was like, I'm going to take out swimming, just strength train and run kind of thing. Because I was just doing a bit too much. And so after that 21 miler, I went on a 2-week vacation, which was really nice. And I had planned to not do a long run on this vacation, just kind of run when I had time. So that was nice to kind of not have to like be worried or nervous for a long run, but just enjoy my vacation. And then when I got back, I felt really good. And I had another 20 miler on the books. And I don't know if I think this next training block, I will not do 20 miles.
Sure.
But that was what the Run program had said. And I, at that point, was like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So I did my 16 when I got back, and then I did 20, and then it was time to taper. And I was so thankful for taper.
Yeah.
But I tapered down hard because I ended up getting a very bad chronic migraine for like a week or two.
Oh no.
Because I still get chronic migraines from having this concussion all the way back in high school. And so it was kind of like running, but kind of not. So I tapered down really hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's probably what my body needed. I was even pretty
sounds like it.
Even though I did that 16 and 20, I was still feeling pretty tired, but I wasn't fatigued.
Yeah.
So I was like, it kind of forced me to rest. Then it was time for the marathon.
Yeah.
And we drove out to Salt Lake City.
Okay, amazing. So now we're at race day. So it's race morning. I'm sure the nerves were crazy on race morning. You're lining up, and I guess if you could just walk us through like the first half. How did the first half go?
Yeah, the first half went really great. One thing was I did not realize the race started at a certain point because they didn't really do like a foghorn. So I was like, oh my God, I gotta put my headphones on.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, we're going.
We're going. And it wasn't a super big marathon either. So I wasn't like that near the back. I just kind of gotten in the crowd. And so I'm running. It's super beautiful. It's going really great. The first half, I had like no complaints. There was a small hill that was a little bit annoying, more than like a struggle. It's just like, uphill.
Yeah.
Ooh. So I'm running. I used the bathroom in the first half, which I didn't think I would, but I drank a good amount of water at the start line. And so I'm just going. I'm having a nice time. I am kind of in like a thinner part of the crowd because I'm running like an 11:30. And so the first half, it's going really good. And then at mile 12, I kind of started to feel something in my lower back. I had no idea what this was. I did deal with a little bit of lower back pain in my second 20 miler. So I didn't think it was like unexpected, but I didn't think it would happen. I thought it was a bit of a fluke in my 20. So I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm going to keep going. And then I get to the halfway point and I see this like cooling gel. It's like a biofreeze gel. And I just like slather it on my back. And I'm like, okay, great. Revitalized.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going. And so I keep going. I ended up making conversation with a girl next to me because we were both like, we're halfway, yay! Because you do run by yourself basically. Yeah. And so I'm running. For the race, you run the first 18 miles down this really beautiful big Cottonwood Canyon, and then you're kind of into like the suburbs of Salt Lake City. And so I do at one point get very nervous I'm going to get swept because I did not know really, I knew my pace per mile, like of the mile I was in because of my watch face, but I didn't really know like my actual like average pace. And
Mm-hmm.
so I ended up speeding up at mile 16 because I was just super nervous. I was going to not meet the cutoff to get out of the canyon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was also going to see my family at mile 18, so I was very excited. My
Mm-hmm.
in-laws, my parents, and two of my friends, my husband were there.
Oh, fun.
So I sped up, and mile 16 was like my fastest mile. It did not need to be my fastest mile. And at that point, my back was doing fine. So I was like, okay, mile 12, a little bit of a fluke, or that cooling gel is truly magical and it fixed my back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get out of I get out of the canyon at mile 18 and I'm just so worried about being swept. And I really don't know why I was because I had a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But being a slower runner, I was just very fearful and I had
Yeah.
seen the sweep car at like we did like kind of a U-turn at one point, and so I saw the swept car and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's only like a mile behind me." But it's
Yeah.
because it was just it was just following the last person. It wasn't like driving the 16-minute mile,
Right.
which at the time I did not realize. I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm running so much slower."
That's
And
so
so
close. Yeah.
I was worried. And at mile 18, I was switching out of my running vest because it was starting to get warmer to a belt. And so my whole family's there. I'm like so excited to see them. And my friend who I trained with first, who really understands running, I turned to her and I was like, I need you to double check the time limit because I saw the swept car and I don't want to get swept. And I'm like just talking to her because I know she's going to understand
Yeah.
this whole language. At the same time, I'm like taking off my vest, changing into my belt. I'm trying to drink water. I decided to put on an icy hot back patch because I was like, just in case
Yeah.
my back starts to hurt again. Which is very difficult to put on, like at the same time you're trying to do 20 other things. I'm talking to my friend,
Right.
I'm like, I need to check to make sure I'm not going to get swept. I'm so nervous. And then I'm like drinking water. I'm like, okay, I love you all. And I like jet off kind of thing. I didn't even
Yeah.
really like read their signs because I was like so focused on not getting swept. And I
Yeah.
didn't want to lose a ton of momentum. At that point, the race is starting to kind of go uphill, downhill. For the point before that, it was very much net downhill, except a small hill at mile 4. My back is really starting to feel it. And I felt like I just couldn't lean forward, which is very important for going up or down a hill. It kind of felt
Yeah.
like it was like a rubber band and I would lean and my back would just like yank me back.
Mm.
So I kind of had to start walking some hills, which I knew I might have to do. And I wasn't like mad at myself, but I was just kind of like, oh, bummer.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm like doing that. It's starting to get hot. And I never had a point where I was like, I don't know if I can finish. I was going to finish this if it killed me. But I, at that point, was just kind of like, I'm so close. I wish my back wasn't being annoying. And I see my family again at mile 22,
Mm-hmm.
which was really cool. This time I really got to see them more because my friend had texted me. She's like, you're not going to get swept. You're cool.
Yeah.
I'm running. My parents are sending me like voice memos. It's very encouraging. And so besides my back hurting at that point, I was still having a good time. I see my parents at mile 22, and then I feel like after that, I was so done. It's getting really hilly at this point. And I see like the 26-mile flag, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so done. Like I'm almost done. It's right there. But then you have to run up this hill,
Oh, brutal.
and like you turn. Like I can't believe they really did that to us.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is the last hill I maybe ever have to run. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. This could be it.
like running up this hill, and I turn the corner and I see the finish line. And at this point, I was like, I'm not going to cry because I'm dehydrated. I have a habit of not crying too much after finish lines because I'm dehydrated and I kind of have my moments while I'm running. Like I had a lot of moments where I was like, I'm running a marathon. This is so cool. Kind of start to tear up.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm definitely not going to cry when I run through, but I like see it and you get that last win. And so I just start sprinting. And I like hear my family, I hear my friends, I hear my husband, and I cross the finish line. I do just start crying like so much. And I hear my mom screaming. She's like, I know, I know. And I think she was just like, I know it's a lot. I know it's a big moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm such a medal person, but I wasn't even like, give me my medal. I was just like crying because I just done this huge thing. And I get
Yeah.
my medal and I get out of the corral. Luckily, it's not like a very long kind of corral area to get out of. And I like see my family and I'm just like crying and I have no words because it just feels like this huge thing. And I knew I was going to finish. I never had a doubt, but to like cross the finish line and to hear them say like, this is my first marathon, like I'm a marathoner was like really cool. And it was just amazing. And I don't think it's a feeling I'm ever going to forget.
Yeah.
And while I've had a lot of lows that I won't forget, I think that high truly beats out all the lows.
Yeah, totally. And you were carrying so much with you through that finish line too. Like
Yeah.
this battle with anorexia that you had, or this relationship that's had to change around running as you started to kind of run through 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and proving to yourself that you can do this big thing. So I'm sure there was a lot that was you were carrying across the finish line with you when you finished your first marathon, for sure.
It really was. And I remember thinking back to that day, thinking back to this girl who got winded walking to class and was wearing a hoodie because her body physically couldn't warm up, to like feeling lucky that I was hot after my marathon, and that my body was able to do something so truly amazing, and that I put in all the effort to fix it because I'm not going to get another body. This is the
Yeah.
only body I have this life. And to put in the work, put in the time, wake up at 4 a.m., put in the strength training, learn to fuel my body properly, and then to finish this and cross the finish line, really felt truly amazing. And yeah, something I'm really never going to forget.
Yeah, I love that. That's amazing. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your marathon story. It was a long journey to get there, and it sounds like the marathon itself was very rewarding. And we talked about it. I guess I'm spoiling it a little bit, but like you're gonna run another one, so it was enough of an experience for you that you're willing to stick with it. But before we talk about that, I always like to ask after first marathon stories for a piece of advice. So if you're thinking about somebody, and maybe even we make it specific to somebody who went through something very similar to you, who's kind of like rebuilding a relationship with themselves and with movement, what's maybe a piece of advice that you'd give somebody like that?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have a lot of battles that you feel that you're losing, but you can win the war. There was
Don't
times where I
apologize.
would just feel like I'm losing. I'm not going to get better. So you can lose a battle, but you can absolutely win the war and you can get better.
Yeah, that's you're gonna make me tear up. That's very sweet, and I think very, very important for people to hear. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing again.
Yeah.
To kind of wrap us up here, I've got a couple of fun questions to ask you about fuel and chew. We've kind of touched on some of it throughout your episode, but
Mhm.
I always give the disclaimer that fuel is your own journey. Please try everything and anything when it comes to fuel and find out what works best for you. And the same thing with shoes. Please go to your local running store or go to a running store and find out what works best for you in terms of shoes. But for fuel, you mentioned Huma, and you mentioned applesauce. What have you liked outside of those things, or are those truly your favorites still?
Huma is truly my favorite. I love them. I love the variety of flavors. I definitely do applesauce packets still, but they don't have quite as high as a carb
Yeah,
count. So I kind of use applesauce packets when I'm just like, I want something really tasty.
yeah, yeah.
um, I also will do candy occasionally, but I'm very bad at chewing while I run. I
It's a
applaud those
skill.
who can like eat food and chew while they run. I
Yes.
love that for you because I cannot. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Yeah, it amazes me. So I usually will carry candy and like have a piece or two,
Hmm.
um, usually to get like the taste out of my mouth from the gel. Because while I do enjoy Huma, the aftertaste can be a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I do enjoy Hema too, though. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then shoes. What have you like for shoes?
Yes, I love shoes. I'm a bit of a running shoe addict. I really like the New Balance Super Comp Trainers
Oh, fun.
V Cell.
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
what I raced in and did the majority of my running in. I also really like the New Balance Fresh Foam 880s.
Yeah. I really
Um,
like those too.
I like those a lot too for running. I also wear like the 1080 New Balances, but mostly for walking.
Uh-huh.
So I have a lot of New Balances, but I recently just got my first pair of Asics, and
Mm.
I so far am really liking those.
Very fun. Yeah, I haven't had New Balance come up. It was coming up a few episodes in a row, like five or six in a row, and then I haven't heard it in a while. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, New Balance is great for walking and running. Great shoe.
Yes, super, super supportive. I have very narrow feet, and so
Mm.
it's one of the only shoes I don't feel like my feet go side to side in.
Nice. Okay, cool. I love that. Well, sweet. Well, we kind of touched on it a little bit or hinted at it a little bit, but you are signed up for your next marathon. You want to talk about what's coming up next?
Yeah, I'm running the Pittsburgh Marathon in May. I grew up in Pittsburgh, so it's my hometown marathon, which I think will be
Fun.
very cool.
Yeah.
I actually signed up for it before I ran my first marathon because I was very afraid it was going to sell out. And I was like, I'll be so sad if I want to run it and then I can, and then I have to wait
Yeah.
till 2027, and I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
gonna want to run a marathon in 2027. So I was like, I just gotta do it.
Yeah.
So I signed up and I'm in base training now, and then I'm going to do a shorter training block. I'm only gonna do about 16 weeks, which I think will be good. But I'm very excited. I think it'll be really cool to run in my hometown.
Amazing. That's so fun. I just did that earlier this year in my hometown. And it is a very fun
Yeah.
experience to get to go experience it in a different way. So that I'm excited for you. That's really fun. And yeah, if anybody wants to kind of follow along with your journey or see how Pittsburgh turns out, where can they find you?
Yeah, on TikTok, it's Lena, Lena dot runs. Lovely not having a super common first name. No, I have the TikTok handle.
Yeah.
And then on Instagram, I don't post as much on Instagram. It's lena.r.milligan.
Amazing. Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure I link everything in the show notes as well. But thank you again, Lena, for coming on and telling your story. And I always like to take a second also to thank the people that are vulnerable and talk about something sensitive, because I do think that that's important to get out there, and it's important for people who are going through something very similar. So I just want to say an extra thank you for being vulnerable and telling your story. It was really helpful.
I'm very thankful to be on and come and share and hopefully help somebody who's maybe going through the same thing, or inspire somebody who feels like they can't because they're fighting a battle, and give them advice, and hopefully they can see that they can do it too.
Yeah, I love that. Well, awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at myfirstmarathonpod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.